What's up guys, and welcome back with some more Genshin Impact, and today we're going to be checking out another theory video, and it is Albedo's Disturbing Truth. It is made by Ilum XD. So as always, if you enjoy this video, be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff. It's greatly appreciated, and the original video will be in the description box below.
Have you ever wondered what this thing is? Throughout the entire game of Genshin Impact, this symbol only shows up when associated with Albedo, and it is my theory that this symbol will not only explain his disturbing future, but why I believe he was a failed creation based on a god.
Okay.
In its simplest form, I believe that this symbol represents the art of Khaenri'ah. Now that might be
Art of
somewhat
who?
anticlimactic, but for now, let's start with the basics for our sanity, otherwise things will get very confusing. Art of Khaenri'ah is an advanced alchemical process that originates from Khaenri'ah, and at the current moment, only Rhine-Daughter, Albedo, and Gold can utilize its potential.
These pictures.
Knowledge that focuses on the creation of life.
And then also, another quick thing that I just noticed is this video, it was made before the last Albedo quest that came out. So the thing that we have to take into account is that Rhine-Daughter, the person who made Albedo, and Gold are the same person. So they just also call Rhine-Daughter Gold. So that's just a little FYI that I felt needed to be added in the video before people start saying, but Keith, there's one part of the theory that, it's not exactly correct. Boom. There you go. I looked at the comments and I completely forgot about that myself. But yeah, there you have it.
With this power, Rhine-Daughter creates Albedo from nothing but dust. Albedo being created from chalk essentially makes him free of impurities. Now we also know that the temptation of this knowledge corrupted Gold, giving birth to a serpentine dragon Durin, leading to the downfall of humanity in Khaenri'ah. This is probably the easiest reference that I've come across since making theory videos, reflecting the creation of life and the Garden of Eden. In Christianity, God creates mankind in its likeness from dust. Mankind lives within the Garden of Eden, holding on to their innocence. Then the temptation of knowledge begins to rear its head, which is being associated with the serpent, leading to the exile of humanity from the garden. As we can see, the story of Garden of Eden symbolizes the exact concept of the art of Khaenri'ah. Now here's where things get interesting. Rhine-Daughter is basically role-playing as a god. God uses his own power to create man, and Rhine-Daughter uses the art of Khaenri'ah to create Albedo. This would mean that the art of Khaenri'ah, or the symbol, represents a power that is similar to the levels of a god. However, there's a problem. God creates man in his likeness, creating an entity that resembles a god. But Rhine-Daughter is not a god. She would have had to create Albedo based on a godly being. So who did she base Albedo on? The Traveler. The answer to Albedo's disturbing future and his connection to the Traveler can all be found in a single place. Within Albedo's constellations.
His constellations? What even is this man's constellation?
I will be referencing to the Chinese and Korean translations, and I want to give a special shout out to Wind Valley for helping me throughout this entire process. First, the Flower of Eden, which is literally translated as the Flower of Eden in Chinese and Korean. This constellation describes the entire outline of life and destruction, and I believe that this symbol is the Flower of Eden. Let me explain. After spending hours trying to figure out what the Flower of Eden even is, I came to a simple conclusion. The Garden of Eden mosaic in the Mausoleum of Gala Placidia in Ravenna, Italy.
The what? Sorry, let me say that again. The Mausoleum of Gala Placidia.
Mausoleum of Gala Placidia in Ravenna, Italy. If we inspect this design a bit closer, we can see that they are in fact flowers. The shape and colors also mirroring the elevator flower of Albedo. Having circular patterns with 8 obtrusions makes the connection very credible. Now, the Flower of Eden begins with a positive connotation, the creation of life. But it also has a more sinister and disturbing end. To describe why Albedo is a ticking time bomb, let's look at how Mihoyo uses this symbol in their other games. This shows up in
I said Albedo. Well, there's Siren right there, right?
Honkai Impact 3rd and Gun Girls, the precursor to Honkai Impact 3rd. When the Hersher of the End, or the...
the Hersher of the End, and then Siren's after that, right? Because this was first, and then it was Siren from Honkai, right? I'm trying to remember right now. I read the Honkai manga and stuff. I should be disappointed in myself. I'm like, I should know this information. Let me just let
Final
this roll a little
god
bit.
uses their power to completely annihilate humanity, we can see the exact replica of this symbol, again reflecting the flower of Eden. This basically tells us that no matter what, the knowledge of the art of Khaenri'ah will cause destruction. The Garden of Eden, the ancient kingdom of Khaenri'ah, and even in the Honkai universe, all
There's Siren,
ends with
yeah.
the downfall and destruction of humanity. In a sense, this gives us more of an insight as to why Dainsleif was so skeptical about Albedo at the end of his collected Mussolini trailer. The art of Khaenri'ah has the power to rival the gods, and the symbol of the Flower of Eden foreshadowing the preordained destruction of humanity. So
Yeah, so when Albedo loses control, it's all over. And that's sort of what I'm waiting for. That's why, like, even though I'm not the craziest about Albedo, and like, you know, I wouldn't say he's one of my favorite characters, but he has the potential to be one of my favorite characters for the reason of, if he just completely loses control, he's gonna become so powerful, and this dude will just be completely cracked out, just all over the place, just going completely berserk, and that intrigues me. I want to see that side, but we're probably not going to see that side for a hot minute. But hey, we could dream, can't we? We could dream. And then for the Honkai part, I remember I'm like, wait, the first one isn't Siren, right? And then the second one is Siren from Honkai.
when could this possible destruction occur? Just like how Adam and Eve and Gold was tempted by the true limitless knowledge, I believe that this destruction will occur when Albedo understands the truth and the meaning of this world. And unlike everyone else in the game who might already know the truth or currently searching for the truth, Albedo is inherently different because he possesses the potential of the art of Khaenri'ah. Now, if we continue down Albedo's constellations, things get more interesting. A direct link which confirms that everything about life and destruction was preordained. First, the opening of Phanerozoic basically
That's
meaning
quite the
beginning
word.
of the world. Then we arrive at Grace of Helios. Now this constellation actually carries a double meaning. The brilliance associated with the sun and the blooming of flower, together translated as the flower of the sun in Chinese and Korean, symbolizing the initial creation of life in the world. To continue, the descent of divinity, which is a direct translation meaning the fall from grace, associated with the exile of mankind in the Garden of Eden and the fall of humanity in Khaenri'ah. Now, following
makes
this
sense.
downfall, we arrive at the Tide of Hadin. Hadin directly referring to the Hadin Eon, a time on Earth describing a hellish condition that was covering the entire world, a direct representation of the cataclysm that occurred in the world.
I
of
see the
Navat.
comparison. I
And
see.
finally, the dust of purification,
Destruction.
relating to the purity behind the soil of Earth, annotating the Albedo's creation after the cataclysm. Basically, the dust of purification explains the current point inside the story of Genshin Impact. Literally, everything about the start and the end of humanity and the existence of Albedo is explained in a linear fashion within his constellations. But we have a question that has yet to be answered. Why is Albedo a failed creation based on a god? To explain, let's backtrack to where it all began. God creates light, or basically the sun. And for the purpose of this theory, let's say that Aether and Lumine is the representation of Adam and Eve. Considering that Albedo is constantly being connected to the sun from his character information, I'd argue that there is some type of correlation here. Let's revisit Albedo's third constellation, the Grace of Helios. As mentioned before, this constellation annotates the beginning of life, directly translated as the flower of the sun. Now, Albedo's skill, a biogenesis solar isotoma, represents a similar pattern. A biogenesis meaning the evolution of life from an inorganic being, and solar being the light, or in our case, the sun, and isotoma being a flower. With this constellation and his skill put together, we now have 3 points of interest that can maybe help us connect Albedo to the traveler. The initial process of creation, the light or the sun, and the flower. Aether and Lumine being a symbolic representation of Adam and Eve explains the initial process of their creation. Now the name Aether meaning sky and Lumine meaning...
You know, I didn't know the... I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. I didn't know that his name meant that. I had no idea his name meant sky.
Light suggests that the unification of the two represents the light in the sky, the sun. If we continue on, we can also find that Aether and Lumine both exhibit a depiction of a flower on their outfits, known as the fleur de lis. Interestingly,
fleur
this
de
flower
lis.
represents royalty when associated with the history of French and German cultures, and funnily enough, Albedo's title, Khaenri'ah Prince, literally means the Chalk Prince in German, again mirroring the concept of royalty. Now, if you're still not convinced, the connections continue. Aesthetically, Albedo and the Travelers both show additional similarities, like their light
That's
hair
true.
colors, the unknown curiously shaped emblems, and the same alteration of the star with the circular tips, which is completely different from any other characters in the game. Even the elemental burst of Albedo and the Geo Traveler is suspiciously similar. To top it all off, Aether and Lumine individually begins their journey in Mondstadt, and as if everything was intended, Rheindotter tasks Albedo to uncover the truth by sending him to Mondstadt as the starting location. With so many resemblances, I believe that Rheindotter did in fact create Albedo in the likeness of the Traveler. But what did I mean when
it
I
is
said
quite
that
possible,
the creation
honestly.
of Albedo was a failure? Well, there are a few circumstantial differences between the Travelers and Albedo. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, while the art of Khaenri'ah can theoretically rival the powers of God, Rheindotter is not a god to begin with. She is role-playing as a god. This means that the creation of man by God is naturally different from how a human would create a homunculus. This difference in origination could explain why Albedo doesn't have the ability to purify corruption, unlike the Traveler during the Dragonspine quest in patch 1.2. And because Albedo possesses the dangers associated with the art of Khaenri'ah, it further explains why Albedo is a flawed reflection when compared to the Travelers. And as an additional food for thought, inside the story of Honkai Impact 3rd, the power of the final Herrscher and the Honkai, which again relates back to the Flower of Eden and the art of Khaenri'ah, is associated with the moon. And if
yes, I know about that. I read that Honkai manga, Second Eruption. You know, if you're into Honkai and you've never read that, highly recommended, highly recommended.
Represents the moon, and the union of the two Travelers signifies.
Yeah, there was some messed up stuff going on that moon.
Similar, but also inherently different. Now, what happens if the sun and the moon converge to a single point? The ray of light or purification being completely engulfed by corruption and darkness. The eclipse. This gives us a whole new meaning behind the Eclipse dynasty of the ancient kingdom of Khaenri'ah, its downfall, and the destruction of humanity. But who knows? Maybe I'm crazy. After all,
maybe you're completely wrong. Maybe you're completely right.
Theory. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to smash like and
yeah, this one I really had to
for
like
more
sit
videos
back
like
more and
this
just try to
one
analyze
in the
what it was
future.
saying.
If
More
you
than I
have your own
typically would
thoughts or opinions
when checking out a
regarding
video like
Albedo
this.
or anything theory related, make sure to let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Alright. Yeah, that was very interesting, I'll say that. I mean, you guys are gonna have to let me know your thoughts down below if you think that Albedo was made based off of, like, the Travelers, you know? I don't know. I mean, he brought up some good points. It could be possible. I don't, like, 100% believe it. I mean, it is a theory, obviously. But, I mean, at the same time, it's not, like, the most outlandish Genshin theory or something I've ever heard. Like, it could make some sense. So, I mean, only time will tell, and we'll see what happens. And eventually Albedo will finally end up going berserk, you know? And what else? I'm actually going to be building Albedo soon, so after all this time of me having him since he first came out and me hating him before, I'm finally about to build him. Because I'd say now I don't even like hate Albedo anymore. I'm like, you know, I think I'm like decent with him, you know? Like I said, he's not one of my favorite characters, but I'm like just cool with him at this point. So, yeah, I don't know. You guys, you already know, be sure to show Island XD some love. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, helps out a ton. We'll check out some other theory videos. Like I said, with this one I had to sit back more and just really analyze it, but typically I'm saying a lot more when it comes to these. But this, I was just like, let me sit back here a little bit more than I typically would. But other than that, I appreciate y'all, love y'all, thank you very much for watching, stay safe, and as I always say, don't do crack.
Be sure to subscribe to the Special K Experience if you enjoyed this video. If not, you're going to Femboy IHOP.